The Liberty raced through space faster than any human ship had ever traveled before. Behind them, the massive Zenith command ship, Eternal Dominion, was burning, its hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere into the void. Captain Jake Morrison watched. The alien vessel shrink in the distance, but he knew their escape was just beginning. "Captain," Navigator Ben Carter called out from his station, "I'm detecting multiple ships following us. The entire Zenith fleet is mobilizing." Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shuddered. They were pushing the stolen quantum drive beyond its normal limits, but it was the only way to stay ahead of their pursuers. "How long until we reach Earth?" "At this speed, 18 hours. But Captain, the fleet behind us is gaining ground. They'll catch us in 12 hours. Then we have 12 hours to turn this ship into something that can fight back," Morrison said. "Palmer, what's our status on integrating the stolen technology?" Chief Engineer Lisa Palmer was covered in sweat and alien lubricants as she worked, frantically in the engine room. Around her, pieces of Zenith technology were being connected to human systems in ways that should have been impossible. "Captain, this is incredible," Palmer's voice came through the communicator. "The quantum cores we stole aren't just power sources. They're like living computers that can adapt to any system we connect them to." "Can you make our weapons stronger?" "I can do better than that. The Zenith database has weapon designs from 17 different species. I'm combining the best features from all of them." Dr. Amy Foster was in the medical bay, working with technology that seemed to respond to her thoughts. The bio-quantum interface she had studied on the alien ship was now connected to her own nervous system, but in a completely different way than the Zenith used it. "Captain, you need to see this," Foster said, as Morrison entered the medical bay. She was holding a small device that glowed with internal light. "The Zenith used these interfaces to control their people, but I figured out how to use them to enhance human abilities instead." "What do you mean?" Foster placed the device on her forehead. Immediately, her eyes began to glow with the same light. "I can process information 10 times faster than normal. I can see patterns in data that would take hours to analyze. But I'm still completely human. I'm still me." The Zenith never thought of using their technology this way. They've been doing the same things for thousands of years. They forgot how to innovate. But humans were always looking for new ways to use old tools. Communications Officer Kate Sullivan had been busy with the stolen databases. The amount of information they had captured was staggering. Technologies that could reshape matter at the atomic level, weapons that could destroy stars, ships that could travel between galaxies in minutes. "Captain, I've sent everything to Earth," Sullivan reported. "Every human scientist, engineer, and researcher on the planet now has access to 50,000 years of advanced technology from dozens of different species." "How are they responding?" "They're working around the clock. Universities, corporations, governments, everyone is sharing information and working together. It's like the entire human race has become one giant research team." Security Chief Ryan Brooks was in the armory, testing new weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology. The results were unlike anything anyone had imagined. "Captain, take a look at this," Brooks said, holding up what looked like a normal human rifle. "Palmer and I combined Zenith energy weapons with human targeting systems and Keithan power cells." Brooks aimed the weapon at a piece of test armor and fired. The beam that emerged was so powerful it didn't just destroy the armor, it disintegrated it completely. "The Zenith weapons are powerful but predictable," Brooks explained. "Human weapons are less powerful but more flexible. Combined together, they're devastating." As the hours passed, the Liberty transformed from a simple exploration ship into something that had never existed before. It was part human ingenuity, part alien technology, and part pure creativity. Palmer had rebuilt the engines using quantum principles that the Zenith had never considered. The ship could now change its mass and energy signature at will, making it almost impossible to track or target. Foster had developed human enhancement systems that gave the crew superhuman reflexes and processing speeds without sacrificing their humanity or free will. Sullivan had created communication systems that could hack into Zenith networks and turn their own technology against them. Carter had designed navigation systems that could predict enemy movements by analyzing quantum probability patterns. Brooks had built weapons that could adapt their power and frequency to overcome any defense. But Morrison knew that their upgrades meant nothing if they couldn't survive long enough to use them. The Zenith fleet was still gaining on them, and soon they would have to fight. "Captain," Carter announced, "the lead Zenith ships will be in weapons range in 30 minutes. "How many?" 12 ships, each one larger than our vessel. Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew had dark circles under their eyes from working without rest, but they looked determined. "Are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Palmer replied from the engine room. "But, Captain, we're about to test human modifications against technology that's conquered the galaxy for 50,000 years. Then let's show them what humans can do." The first Zenith ship appeared on their sensors like a dark shadow against the stars. It was 3 times the size of the Liberty, armed with weapons that could crack planets. "They're hailing us," Sullivan reported. "Put them through." The cold voice of Coordinator Vex 9 filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you cannot escape. Surrender the stolen technology and accept immediate termination. Your species will be spared if you comply." Morrison smiled. "Vex 9, this is Captain Morrison. We have a counteroffer. Leave our solar system and never return, and we won't have to destroy your fleet." There was silence for a moment. Then Vex 9 spoke again, and for the first time, there was emotion in its voice. Anger. "You dare threaten the collective? You are insects compared to our power." "Then come and prove it." The Zenith ship opened fire with weapons that could melt asteroids. But when the energy beams struck the Liberty, they simply bent around the ship's hull like water flowing around a rock. "Palmer, what did you do?" Morrison asked in amazement. "I combined Zenith shielding with human adaptive algorithms and Vortali, deflection technology. Our shields don't just absorb energy, they redirect it." The Liberty spun and returned fire. The beam that emerged from its weapons was unlike anything the Zenith had ever seen. It shifted frequency and power as it traveled, overwhelming the alien ship's defenses. The Zenith vessel exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. "1 down, 11 to go," Brooks announced. The remaining Zenith ships attacked, together, surrounding the Liberty with enough firepower to destroy a moon. But the human ship moved like nothing they had ever encountered, appearing and disappearing, striking from impossible angles. Morrison felt the bio-quantum interface Foster had given him, connecting his mind to the ship's systems. He could feel the vessel responding to his thoughts, moving not just according to his commands, but according to his intentions. "This is what the Zenith never understood," Foster said, her own interface glowing as she coordinated the ship's defenses. "Technology isn't just about power. It's about the relationship between the user and the tool." One by one, the Zenith ships fell. Each alien vessel was more powerful than the Liberty, but they fought like machines, following the same tactics they had used for thousands of years. The humans fought like artists, creating new strategies with every move, using the aliens' own technology in ways they had never imagined. When the last Zenith ship was destroyed, Morrison opened a channel to Earth. "This is the Liberty. We're coming home and we're bringing gifts." The Liberty was pulled into the belly of the alien command ship like a toy being swallowed by a whale. Captain Jake Morrison and his crew watched through the viewports as massive doors closed behind them, cutting off their view of the stars. The alien ship was enormous, easily 50 times larger than their own vessel. Morrison felt the artificial gravity change as they were brought to rest in what looked like a cargo bay. Strange lights moved along the walls, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy. Everything about this place felt wrong to human senses. "Captain," Security Chief Ryan Brooks said quietly, "I count at least 20 weapon systems pointed at us right now. They're not taking any chances." A new voice came through their communication system, different from the cold computer voice they had heard before. This one sounded more natural, though still clearly not human. "I am Coordinator Vex 9. I will be your guide during the evaluation process. You may bring 5 of your crew members. The rest will remain with your vessel." Morrison quickly chose his team. He would take Dr. Amy Foster to study the aliens, Chief Engineer Lisa Palmer to learn about their technology, Communications Officer Kate Sullivan to help with translation, Navigator Ben Carter to map their ship, and Security Chief Brooks for protection. "Remember," Morrison whispered to his team as they prepared to leave the Liberty, "we're here to learn everything we can. Stay alert and try to memorize everything you see." The airlock opened, and Morrison got his first look at a living alien. Coordinator Vex 9 was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. It wore a flowing robe that seemed to change color as it moved. Most disturbing were the mechanical devices attached to its head and arms, blinking with strange lights. "Welcome to the Eternal Dominion," Vex 9 said. Its mouth barely moved when it spoke, and Morrison realized the voice was coming from one of the mechanical devices. "Follow me. Do not touch anything. Do not wander from the designated path." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered with symbols that hurt to look at, and the air smelled like metal and electricity. Other aliens moved past them, all with the same mechanical attachments, all ignoring the humans completely. "Your species is primitive but shows potential," Vex 9 explained as they walked. "The collective has dealt with hundreds of species like yours. Most choose to accept our guidance rather than face extinction." Dr. Foster spoke up. "How many species are part of your collective?" "Currently, we guide the development of 47 client species across this galaxy. Each contributes according to their abilities and receives technology appropriate to their level of evolution." "And if a species refuses to join?" Morrison asked. Vex 9 stopped walking and turned to look at the captain. 23 species have refused our guidance over the past 10,000 years. They no longer exist." The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with screens and control panels. Aliens moved between the stations, their mechanical attachments connecting directly to the ship's systems. Morrison realized that the crew and the ship were connected in ways humans had never imagined. "This is our central command," Vex 9 explained. "From here, we monitor the development of all species in this sector of the galaxy. Your Earth has been observed from this very room for millennia." Sullivan stared at one of the large screens that showed Earth as seen from space. "You can see our planet from here?" "We can see much more than that. Watch." The screen changed to show different views of Earth. Cities, forests, oceans, all in perfect detail. Then it showed individual humans going about their daily lives completely unaware they were being watched. "We have monitoring stations throughout your solar system," Vex 9 continued. "Every major technological development is reported to us. Every breakthrough that happens too quickly is noted for intervention." Palmer was studying the alien technology around them. The engineer in her was fascinated despite the terrible situation. How do you connect your minds to your machines like that? The bioquantum interface allows direct neural connection to our technology. It is standard for all collective members. Your species will be modified to accept these implants once you join us. Modified how? Dr. Foster asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Surgical insertion of quantum processors into your brain tissue. The procedure has a 97% survival rate among species with similar brain structures to yours. Morrison felt sick. And the other 3%? Acceptable losses for the greater good of galactic stability. They continued the tour, seeing more wonders and horrors of alien technology. Massive computers that could predict the future of entire civilizations, weapons that could destroy planets from across the galaxy, medical systems that could heal any injury but required permanent connection to collective networks. In a chamber filled with floating displays, Vex 9 showed them records of other species that had been integrated into the collective. Morrison watched footage of proud alien civilizations being reduced to servants, their best and brightest turned into cyborgs connected to collective computers. The Kethans were master engineers, Vex 9 explained, pointing to one display. They now maintain our ship systems. The Vortali were excellent warriors. They serve as our military forces. Each species contributes their greatest strengths to the collective. What would humanity contribute? Carter asked. Your species shows unusual creativity and adaptability. You would make excellent problem solvers for situations our standard protocols cannot handle. Dr. Foster was studying the biological data on the displays. These other species, they all look different from what they were before joining you. Integration requires optimization. Unnecessary biological functions are removed. Useful traits are enhanced. Emotional responses that interfere with efficiency are suppressed. Morrison realized they were looking at the systematic destruction of everything that made a species unique. The collective didn't just want to control technology. They wanted to control the minds and souls of every intelligent species in the galaxy. Why do you do this? Morrison asked. What's the point of controlling everyone? Vex 9 stopped and faced the human captain. For the first time, something like emotion appeared in its large black eyes. Because chaos is the alternative. Young species develop weapons faster than wisdom. They destroy themselves and others. The collective prevents this by controlling the pace of advancement. So you decide what's best for everyone? We have maintained galactic peace for 50,000 years. Before the collective, this galaxy burned with constant warfare between young species who gained power too quickly. We ended that chaos. Brooks had been quietly studying the security systems around them. He noticed that most of the defenses were automated, controlled by the same computer systems the aliens connected their minds to. What happens if someone attacks the collective? No one attacks the collective. Our technology is superior to anything. Primitive species can develop. Our defenses are absolute. Palmer had been examining the quantum interfaces the aliens used. She whispered to Morrison, Captain, their technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also completely standardized. They all use the exact same systems in the exact same ways. Morrison nodded slightly. He was beginning to see weaknesses in what seemed like an invincible enemy. The collective was powerful, but they had become rigid and predictable through thousands of years of dominance. As they were led back toward the Liberty, Vex 9 gave them their final warning. You have 18 of your hours to make your decision. Integration or extinction. Choose wisely. Once they were back aboard their ship, Morrison gathered his crew in the conference room. We're not joining them, he said simply. And we're not going to let them destroy humanity either. How do we fight something like that? Sullivan asked. Morrison looked around at his team. We do what humans do best. We learn, we adapt, and we find a way to win. The red lights flashed across the bridge of the UES Liberty as alarms screamed through the ship. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the armrest of his command chair as the massive vessel shook violently. Sparks flew from control panels, and the smell of burning circuits filled the air. Status report, Morrison shouted over the noise. Chief Engineer Lisa Palmer's voice crackled through the communication system from deep in the ship's engine room. Captain, we've lost the quantum drive completely. Something hit us with an electromagnetic pulse, but this is nothing like anything we've seen before. The energy signature is totally unknown. Morrison felt his stomach drop. 3 days ago, humanity had achieved something that seemed impossible just years before. They had built their first ship capable of traveling faster than light. The Liberty was supposed to be humanity's proud entry into the stars. The mission to Proxima Centauri was meant to be a celebration of human achievement and the start of a new age of exploration. Instead, they were now drifting helplessly in the cold darkness of space, millions of miles from Earth with their most important systems destroyed. How long until life support fails? Morrison asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. 6 hours, maybe 8 if we shut down all non-essential systems, Palmer replied. But, Captain, there's something else. This wasn't an accident. Someone did this to us on purpose. Security Chief Ryan Brooks appeared on the bridge, his face grim. He carried a data pad filled with information from the ship's sensors. Captain, you need to see this. I've been going through our sensor logs from the past 3 days. Brooks activated the main display screen. It showed the path the Liberty had taken since leaving Earth. Look at this energy reading here, and here, and here. He pointed to several spots along their route. Something has been following us since we left Earth orbit. It was using some kind of cloaking technology that made it almost invisible to our sensors. Morrison studied the data carefully. Almost invisible? Our sensors picked up tiny energy fluctuations. At first, I thought it was just background radiation, but the pattern is too regular. Someone was watching us the entire time. Dr. Amy Foster, the mission's expert on possible alien life, looked up from her own datapad. She had been analyzing the weapon that attacked them. Captain, this wasn't random. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They hit our quantum drive, our main computers, and our communication array with surgical precision. But they left our life support and basic power systems alone. What does that mean? Morrison asked. They wanted us alive but helpless. This was planned. Navigator Ben Carter suddenly looked up from his station, his face pale. Captain, you need to see this. I'm detecting multiple ships around us. What? Where did they come from? They're decloaking. 6 ships. No, 8 ships. They're surrounding us. The main screen changed to show the space around the Liberty. One by one, strange ships appeared as if materializing from nothing. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. The ships seemed to bend light around them, making them hard to look at directly. Their hulls were smooth and dark, with no visible weapons or engines, yet they moved with perfect precision. Morrison felt his mouth go dry. Humanity's first contact with alien life was happening, and it was not at all how anyone had imagined it would be. Communications Officer Kate Sullivan worked frantically at her station. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead ship. It's on multiple frequencies and they're using some kind of universal translation system." "Put it through," Morrison said, trying to keep his voice steady. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and emotionless, like a computer trying to sound human, but not quite succeeding. "Human vessel, you are now property of the Zenith Collective. Your species has violated the Galactic Progression Accords by achieving faster-than-light capability without proper authorization." Morrison exchanged a confused look with his second-in-command, Alex Turner. No one on Earth had ever heard of any galactic government or progression accords. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Liberty. We don't know what you're talking about. We've never heard of any galactic accords." "Ignorance is not an excuse. Your species has been monitored for your entire existence. You have developed prohibited technology without permission from the collective." Dr. Foster stepped forward. "Monitored for how long?" "Your species has been under observation for approximately 3,000 of your years. The Zenith Collective maintains galactic stability by controlling technological development among primitive species." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the communication system in shock. "You've been watching us for 3,000 years?" Morrison asked. "Correct. Your species has shown dangerous tendencies toward rapid technological advancement and aggressive expansion. We have intervened when necessary to slow your development." Sullivan looked at her captain with wide eyes. "Intervened how?" The alien voice continued without emotion. "Your industrial revolutions were allowed to proceed, but many of your wars were influenced to set back technological progress. Scientists working on breakthrough technologies were eliminated when their work proceeded too quickly. Experiments that would have led to faster-than-light travel were sabotaged. Your species should not have achieved this capability for another 500 years. Dr. Foster felt sick. "You're saying that every time humanity seemed close to a major breakthrough, you stopped us?" "Correct. The collective maintains order by ensuring that younger species develop technology at an appropriate pace. Uncontrolled technological advancement leads to chaos and destruction." Morrison was getting angry. "So you've been holding humanity back for thousands of years, and now you're telling us we're criminals for finally succeeding? Your success was unexpected. Our monitoring systems detected the development of your quantum drive too late to prevent its completion. This oversight will be corrected." "What does that mean?" "Your species will be given two choices. You may accept integration into the collective as a client species with appropriate technological restrictions, or you may be eliminated to prevent future violations of galactic law." The bridge was completely quiet, except for the hum of the ship's remaining systems. Morrison looked around at his crew. They were the best humanity had to offer. Scientists, engineers, and explorers who had worked their entire lives to reach this moment. Now they were being told that humanity's greatest achievement was actually a crime. "How long do we have to decide?" Morrison asked. "You will be brought aboard our command vessel for evaluation. Your decision must be made within one rotation of your home planet." Turner leaned close to Morrison and whispered, "Captain, Palmer's been studying their energy signatures while they've been talking. She thinks she might be able to learn something about their technology." Morrison nodded slightly. If humanity was going to survive this, they would need every advantage they could get. He had no intention of accepting slavery, but he also knew that humanity couldn't fight these aliens with current technology. "We accept your terms for evaluation," Morrison said aloud. "Wise choice. Prepare for transport." As the Liberty was pulled toward the massive alien command ship, Morrison made a decision that would change everything. If these aliens thought humans would simply accept defeat, they were about to learn how wrong they could be. The Zephyrian labor camp on Kepler 442b stretched across a barren plain under a red sun. Thousands of Altarian prisoners worked in the mining pits, their green skin covered with dust and their large eyes dim with despair. Guard towers rose from the camp perimeter, each one armed with weapons that could kill dozens of prisoners in seconds. Captain Laura Mendez crouched behind a rocky outcrop 2 miles from the camp. Her stealth suit made her nearly invisible against the alien landscape. Through her scope, she could see the Zephyrian guards patrolling the fence line. They moved with the casual confidence of beings who had never faced a real threat. "Target. Count," she whispered into her communication device. Corporal Danny Cruz, her demolitions expert, checked his scanner from his position near the camp's power station. 47 guards, 12 automated defense systems, and about 3,000 prisoners. The good news is that most of the guards are concentrated near the administration building. Escape routes? Specialist Karen White, the team's medic, had spent 2 days studying the camp layout. There's a landing field on the east side with 6 transport ships. If we can disable the automated defenses, the prisoners can reach the ships before reinforcements arrive. Mendez nodded and activated her tactical display. The rescue mission was risky, but intelligence from captured Zephyrian officers had revealed the locations of dozens of similar camps throughout their empire. If humanity was going to liberate the galaxy, they needed allies. More importantly, they needed information. "Danny, you have 15 minutes to place your charges." "Karen, set up. The medical station at Rally Point Alpha. I'll take out the guard towers." The 3 humans moved with the silent efficiency that had made Earth's special forces legendary throughout their own star system. Each member of the team had trained for years in hostile environment operations. They had studied every piece of intelligence about Zephyrian military procedures and identified weaknesses that the aliens didn't even know existed. Mendez reached the first guard tower as the alien sentry was looking in the opposite direction. Her combat knife made no sound as it found its target. The Zephyrian guard fell without making a noise, and Mendez was already moving toward the next tower before the body hit the ground. Meanwhile, Cruz worked his way through the camp's underground power conduits. The Zephyrians had built their facility using standard Imperial designs, never considering that those designs might be studied and memorized by their enemies. He placed his explosive charges with surgical precision, targeting the power junctions. That would disable the automated weapons without destroying the prisoner barracks. The charges detonated exactly on schedule. The camp's lights went out, and its defensive systems went silent. Emergency alarms began wailing, but the Zephyrian guards found themselves fighting in darkness against an enemy they couldn't see. Within 20 minutes, the camp was under human control. The Altarian prisoners stared in amazement as their rescuers removed their helmets, revealing the faces of the species they had only heard about in whispered rumors. An elderly Altarian named Veltar approached Captain Mendez with tears streaming down his green cheeks. "You are the humans? The ones who defeated the Zephyrian fleet?" "We are," Mendez replied gently. "And you're free. But we need your help to free others." Veltar nodded eagerly. "Anything. What do you need to know?" "Everything. Guard rotations. Supply routes, communication codes. Most importantly, we need to know where they're keeping the other prisoners. As the liberated Altarians boarded the transport ships, they shared information that had been gathered over months of captivity. The Zephyrian Empire maintained over 200 labor camps across 40 different star systems. Millions of beings, from dozens of species, were being held as slaves. "There's something else," Veltar said as his ship prepared to depart. "The Zephyrians are retreating. They're pulling their fleets back to their core systems and abandoning many of their outer territories." Mendez felt a grim satisfaction. The human strategy was working faster than anyone had expected. 3 days later, Admiral Kexthor stood in the throne room of the Zephyrian Emperor on the imperial homeworld of Zephyr Prime. The massive chamber was designed to intimidate visitors with its size and grandeur, but today it felt like a tomb. The Emperor, an ancient being whose blue skin had faded to gray with age, sat on his crystal throne and listened to the reports of military disaster with growing anger. "Explain to me again how a single species has destroyed 3 centuries of conquest," Emperor Thaxron demanded, his 4 arms gripping the throne so tightly that the crystal began to crack. Kexthor forced himself to remain calm, though every military instinct told him to run. "Your Majesty, the humans fight unlike any species we have encountered. They do not rely on superior technology or overwhelming force. Instead, they use tactics that are unpredictable and adaptive." "Tactics," the Emperor spat. "You were defeated." "By clever thinking?" Commander Velnara stepped forward with a datapad in her hands. "Your Majesty, we have analyzed the human military records obtained during our first encounter. This species has been engaged in warfare for its entire recorded history. They have developed fighting techniques that we have never seen before." Thust. Emperor took the device and began reading. His expression changed from anger to confusion to something approaching fear. The data showed conflict after conflict, each one teaching humanity new ways to fight and survive. The humans had battled in every environment imaginable, from frozen tundra to scorching deserts, from deep ocean trenches to the vacuum of space. "They fight their own kind with this intensity?" Thaxron asked. "For thousands of years," Kexthor confirmed. "But now they are united against us. Every tactical lesson learned from internal warfare is being applied to our destruction." On the far side of the galaxy, Colonel Tracy Adams coordinated the largest logistics operation in human history. Supply ships moved between star systems, carrying weapons and equipment to newly liberated worlds. Communication networks were established, allowing dozens of species to coordinate their resistance efforts for the first time. Adams stood in the cargo bay of the supply ship UES Providence, watching as former slaves were trained to use human weapons. A group of Altarians practiced with assault rifles under the guidance of Sergeant Mike Torres, while a squad of the insectoid Kethara species learned to operate human communication equipment. "The learning curve is steep," reported Major Linda Hayes, Adams's logistics coordinator. "But these species are motivated. They've seen what freedom looks like, and they want it." "What about military capability?" Adams asked. "Better than expected." "The Altarians have natural skills with electronics and computer systems. The Kethara are excellent at reconnaissance and stealth operations. Give them human equipment and training, and they'll be formidable allies." Adams nodded as she watched. An Altarian successfully strip and reassemble a human rifle in under 2 minutes. The alien's large eyes showed intense concentration, and Adams could see the determination that had helped his species survive years of slavery. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Chang made a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. She had been studying recordings of Zephyrian communications intercepts, analyzing not just what they said, but how they said it. Her expertise in xenopsychology had revealed something important about the enemy's mindset. "They're terrified," she announced, to the assembled intelligence officers in Earth's command center. "The Zephyrian military doctrine is based entirely on the assumption that superior force will cause enemies to surrender. They have no experience fighting an opponent who refuses to give up." General Hayes leaned forward in his chair. "Elaborate." "Every species they've conquered has followed the same pattern. The Zephyrians appear with overwhelming force. The local government calculates that resistance is hopeless, and they surrender to minimize casualties. But humans don't think that way." Dr. Chang activated a holographic display showing psychological profiles of captured Zephyrian officers. "Look at these interviews. When asked about human tactics, they use words that translate roughly to madness and impossible stubbornness. They genuinely cannot understand why we continue fighting when we're outnumbered, because we've never been taught that being outnumbered means losing," Hayes replied. "Every human military academy teaches the Battle of Thermopylae, the Siege of Stalingrad, the defense of Mars Colony. We've been learning from impossible victories for thousands of years." Chang nodded and pulled up another display. "That's exactly my point. The Zephyrians have no concept of fighting against impossible odds because they've always been the ones with overwhelming force. Now that they're facing determined resistance, their entire command structure is paralyzed." Captain Morrison, recently returned from a successful raid on a Zephyrian supply depot, joined the conversation from his position at the tactical display. "Dr. Chang is right. We intercepted communications during our last operation. The Zephyrian officers were asking for permission to retreat instead of fighting. Their crews are questioning orders for the first time in centuries. Morale is breaking down," Hayes observed. "Good. Fear is a weapon we can use." As if to prove his point, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human psychological warfare specialists were broadcasting Earth's military history to Zephyrian troop. The space around the Zephyrian fleet erupted in light and fire. Energy beams lashed out from the alien warships, seeking to destroy the smaller human vessels. But the Earth ships moved like nothing Kexthor had ever seen before. They twisted and rolled through space, avoiding the massive energy blasts with movements that seemed impossible. "How are they moving like that?" Commander Velnara shouted over the noise of battle. Her tactical display showed human ships performing maneuvers that defied every rule of space combat she knew. "Their ships are smaller," Kexthor replied, but his voice carried doubt. "Less mass means better acceleration." On the bridge of the UES Retribution, Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the battle unfold with calm eyes. She was a tall woman with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was simple and practical, without the decorations that marked many high-ranking officers. She had earned her position through skill, not politics. "Target the weapon systems on the lead ship," she ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. We want prisoners for questioning." Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb, her tactical officer, relayed the orders to the fleet. The human ships immediately changed their attack pattern. Instead of trying to match the Zephyrian vessels shot for shot, they began targeting specific systems with surgical precision. Captain Taylor watched from the bridge of the Sovereign Talon as the battle raged around them. The Zephyrian crew worked frantically at their stations, but their confidence was cracking. Their massive weapons were missing targets that should have been easy to hit. "Your ships are fast," Kexthor admitted grudgingly, "but speed alone cannot defeat superior firepower." You're right, Taylor agreed. Speed alone isn't enough. That's why we don't rely on it. As he spoke, the human attack pattern became clear. The Earthships weren't just avoiding enemy fire, they were herding the Zephyrian vessels into a specific formation. Like wolves hunting a pack animal, they circled and struck, forcing their enemies to move exactly where they wanted them. 3 human destroyers suddenly accelerated toward the Zephyrian flagship. Energy beams reached out to stop them, but the lead ship rolled sideways at the last second. The beam passed harmlessly through empty space, while the destroyer fired a spread of kinetic projectiles at the alien ship's weapon ports. The projectiles were simple metal slugs, primitive by Zephyrian standards. But they were moving at incredible speed, and they hit with devastating effect. The alien ship's forward weapons went dark as the projectiles tore through delicate energy conduits and targeting systems. Impossible, Velnara gasped. Kinetic. Weapons cannot penetrate our armor. They can if you hit the right spots, Commander Stone observed from where she stood near the alien command station. Every ship has weak points. Humans have spent centuries learning how to find them. The second wave of human ships moved in as the first wave withdrew to rearm. But these new vessels carried different weapons. Instead of kinetic projectiles, they fired what looked like simple metal nets. The nets expanded as they flew through space, each one designed to wrap around specific parts of a Zephyrian ship. When they made contact, they began to contract, crushing delicate sensor arrays and communication equipment. Primitive technology, Kexthor said, but his voice lacked conviction. His ships were being systematically blinded and silenced by weapons. That belonged in a museum. Admiral Sullivan's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Kexthor, your fleet is disabled. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war. Laws of war? Kexthor laughed harshly. There are no laws in war, only victory and defeat. That's where you're wrong, Taylor said quietly. Humans learned long ago that how you fight is just as important as whether you win. It's one of the things that makes us different from species like yours. The human fleet began its final maneuver. The remaining functional Zephyrian ships tried to form a defensive circle, but they were too damaged to coordinate effectively. Human boarding pods launched from the destroyers, small craft that moved too fast for the alien weapons to track. Lieutenant Colonel Webb led the first boarding party onto the Zephyrian cruiser Darkstar. His team of 20 Marines moved through the ship's corridors with practiced efficiency. They had studied the layout of Zephyrian vessels from captured intelligence, and they knew exactly where to go. Staff Sergeant Nina Foster kicked open the door to the ship's engine room. The Zephyrian technicians inside raised their hands in surrender without being asked. They had heard the stories of human close-quarters combat from other conquered species, and they had no desire to test those stories personally. Secure the power core, Webb ordered. Disable the weapons, but leave life support intact. The Marines moved with speed and precision. They had trained for this kind of operation countless times. Within minutes, the Zephyrian cruiser was completely under human control. Similar scenes played out across the alien fleet. Human boarding parties captured ship after ship, always targeting the same critical systems. They moved like they had been fighting in space for centuries instead of decades. On Earth, General Hayes stood in the war room deep beneath the Pentagon. Banks of screens showed the battle in real time, transmitted by quantum communication devices. That the Zephyrians couldn't intercept or jam. Phase 1 is complete, reported Admiral Patricia Collins, commander of Earth's Second Fleet, Admiral Sullivan has secured the Zephyrian advance force with minimal casualties on both sides. And their reaction? Hayes asked. Dr. Simon Clark, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, looked up from his analysis station. The intercepted communications show complete confusion. They don't understand how we defeated superior technology with inferior weapons. Hayes nodded grimly. The first engagement had been a test, a way to measure Zephyrian capabilities and tactical thinking. The results were better than he had hoped. The aliens were advanced, but they were predictable. They relied entirely on technological superiority and had never learned to adapt when that advantage was taken away. Deploy the Second Fleet, he ordered. It's time to take this war to them. Back in space, Captain Rick Campbell of the destroyer UES Warrior was preparing for a desperate gambit. His ship had taken heavy damage from a Zephyrian battleship's weapons, and his engines were failing. Instead of retreating, he aimed his vessel directly at the alien ship's command section. "All hands, abandon ship," he announced over the intercom. "Emergency evacuation in 60 seconds. His crew moved with the efficiency that came from endless training. Escape pods launched as Campbell remained at his post, guiding his crippled ship toward its target. The Zephyrian battleship tried to destroy the incoming destroyer, but their weapons were designed to fight at long range, not to stop a ship intent on ramming. The Warrior struck the alien vessel just below its main bridge. The explosion lit up space for miles around, and when the light faded, both ships were drifting hulks. But Campbell's sacrifice had crippled the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian formation. Admiral Sullivan's voice filled the communication channels. "This is Admiral Sullivan to all Zephyrian vessels. You have seen what happens when humans are forced to fight. Surrender now and your crews will be spared. Continue fighting, and we will show you why Earth has never lost a war." Kexthor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His entire advance fleet was either captured or destroyed. The humans had accomplished in one battle what no species had ever done before. They had defeated the Zephyrian Empire in open combat. "How?" he asked Taylor. "How did you do this?" Taylor looked at the alien commander with something that might have been pity. "Admiral, your people have been conquering primitive species for 3 centuries. You've forgotten what it's like to fight someone who fights back." Dr. Turner activated his data pad again. "Admiral, would you like to see the combat?" Records of Admiral Sullivan's crews. These people have been training for space warfare since they were children. They've studied every battle in human history and learned from every mistake. "But your weapons are primitive," Velnara protested. "Your ships are smaller and weaker than ours." "That's true," Commander Stone agreed. "But we learned something important from our history. The most advanced army doesn't always win. The smartest army does." The communication channel crackled as a new voice joined the conversation. General Hayes was speaking from Earth, his words carrying across the vast distance of space. "Admiral Kexthor, this is General Connor Hayes of the United Earth Defense Force. I want you to understand something very important. This battle was not a victory for us. It was a demonstration." "A demonstration?" "The fleet you just faced represents less than 1% of Earth's military capability. We have thousands of ships, millions of trained soldiers, and weapons you cannot imagine. More importantly, we have something your empire has never encountered." "And what is that?" Hayes's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "We have the will to fight until victory is complete. We have never surrendered, and we never will. If you want a war with humanity, you can have one. But understand this: it will not end until your empire is nothing but a memory." The communication channel went silent. Around the disabled Zephyrian, Fleet human ships took up patrol positions. They moved with the confidence of predators who had found their prey. Kexthor looked at Captain Taylor one last time. "What happened